This
If
conference will
anyone is
now be
here,
recorded.
I would like you to say a hi or something. Okay. I hope you all have read electronic devices and circuits in your third semester. Is your third semester exam over for EDC? Is anyone here?
Yeah, yeah. You can go with this.
Okay, ma'am. EDC exam.
EDC over. EDC over. LIC, they have yet to write the exam.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So even EDC, even if EDC exam is over, this session is going to be very helpful to you. Now, the first question in everyone's mind here will be electronic devices is the subject for communication students. Now, what is the purpose of AAA students reading this subject? I would like to begin the session with giving an introduction to this analog devices as a tripod. Now, this analog devices are is not only confined to EDC. Now, this will also form a basis for your future subject, power electronics. I think you will be having it in your sixth semester. And this is also
Raghavendran, they are supposed to have it in the next semester itself, power electronics.
okay. Now, first thing is when we begin analog devices, I am supposed to start with diode and characteristics and circuits, everything. I am supposed to start with diodes. But I think diodes is unnecessary for you people because you will have a very good knowledge about diodes because you would have studied it in your 11th, 12th, as well as in first semester. I think you will have it in physics. Did you read it in physics? Are you all aware of a diode circuits? I would since this is not a face-to-face thing, if someone responds, I'll be happy to get someone.
Students, if you have the answers for these questions, kindly unmute yourself and give the answers. Then again mute.
No, don't serve me. Okay. So you all have an idea about diodes. Now, the first question I would like to ask is diode an analog device or an exponential device? Do you know whether diode is an exponential device or a log device? Okay. So even though the diode current equation is ID is equal to I naught e power VBE by VT minus 1, it is not an exponential device. It is considered to be a log device. Whereas BJT, it is an exponential device because if you look at the equation, when you derive it, you'll be able to find out that it is an exponential device. BJT is an exponential device, whereas diode is a log device. And I would like to also tell you that diode is not frequently used in circuit designing. We use a transistor. But how do we connect a transistor as a diode? It is very simple. You just have to short circuit the collector and the base terminal. I hope you all know the three terminal device, BJT. It will look like this. It will have a three terminal collector, base, and emitter. If you short circuit the emitter and the collector and the base, you will have built yourself a diode, which you can use it in analog devices. Use it as in analog circuits. Okay. Now I'm sure that most of you would have read the subject in using your local author Bakshi book. Even when I was in that semester, I read from the same book. But the thing is, if you read from that book, you will not have a clear understanding of the concept, or you will not you will not be able to answer any question. I'm not asking you all to refer very high standard books, but there are certain foreign authors who have made the subject easy and presentable for you, which means I'm not supposed to say this, but I would like to say there's a book called Cedra Smith, which is very important for analog devices. Even if you go to any coaching center, they will recommend you Cedra Smith. But the truth is, the staff himself wouldn't have read from that book, because it will be very monotonous. It will be very boring. The book is very boring. You will have many things which is not related to anything. Like you will not be that will not you will not have questions from it in any competitive exams, or it is not basic. It's not going to give you any knowledge about to on how to build a circuit. So it is highly unnecessary. But there are certain books. I will tell the name of those books at the end of the session, which are very helpful for you to understand what analog devices. Plus, I've seen actually I've seen many people, many students, my friends, who find analog devices to be a very hard subject. Most of them omit the subject entirely. I'm sure most of you have only read only few topics which are very important and very often repeated in your semester exams. You would have read that, but that is not going to help you at all, because unless you understand analog devices, BJT, MOSFET, JFET, IGBT, diode, you're not going to have a complete knowledge about what a power electronic device is. If you don't know what a power electronic device is, you cannot understand what a converter is or what an inverter is. Unless you don't understand what a converter or inverter is, you're not going to completely understand all the harmonics that are being generated in the power systems that give you a very serious problems when you start designing a big power system network and all. Because when you supply power, you're supposed to cut down all the harmonic components in it, and you need to maintain the voltage at a constant thing. You will be having a subject called facts, which will deal in greater depth about how we maintain the voltage and voltage constant in a power system, because you cannot keep the voltage is not supposed to vary from one point to another in power systems. So let us go on with the subject, but I'm not going to start with diodes because it is easy. Plus, it is not very important. It is highly important in gate and IES point of view, but it is very simple to solve. Even if you read the book yourself, you'll be able to solve. I'd like to start with a trick. Whenever you have a diode device, there are only 3 points you need to, 3 things that you need to do for you to analyze a diode circuit. If possible, I'll come up with some questions in the next session. But the first thing is you need to remove the diode and replace it with a resistor or a short circuit. Then, using nodal analysis or KVL, you need to find out the current and the voltages across the diode, voltage across the diode and current through the diode. If the current direction is in the same direction of the diode, then the diode is present in the circuit and it is supposed to be considered as a short circuit. If the current direction that you obtain using KCL or KVL is in opposite direction to that of the diode's direction, then it means that the diode is an open circuit. These are the only 3 basic points that you need to keep in mind when you start analyzing a diode circuit. Now, actually, any book if you take and refer, they will only start with BJT. But I'm not going to start with BJT because I'm sure that you all know what a BJT is. You all know what are the 3 main elements in a transistor. You all know what are the 3 main modes in which we use a BJT, which are namely common base, common collector, common emitter. And I'm sure that you're all aware of the different types of biasing. There are many types of biasing, but the 3 main types are fixed bias, voltage divider bias, and self bias. I'm sorry, fixed bias, collector to base bias, and self bias, which is also known as voltage divider bias. I'm sure you're all aware of this one, but you're not going to having a I'm sure that you're not having a thorough knowledge on MOSFET. Is there anyone who is more interested in MOSFET than BJT? Okay, I have a no. And I'm sure that you all omit MOSFET because when I was in third semester, I also omitted MOSFET because it was very difficult to understand, and the circuit as well as the characteristics, it was all very difficult. Even BJT's functioning, everyone will have their own. Gunachandran, do you like MOSFETs? I'd like Gunachandran to unmute and answer me this question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, so you like MOSFETs more than BJT? May I know why?
So I like MOSFET because why should I say reasons? I like MOSFET. I like studying that. That's it.
No, it's not that you should give me a reason. I'm just asking you why you're curious about MOSFET and why not BJT. You know, BJT is more often used, but why not? Why aren't you more attracted towards BJT, and what do you find more fascinating in MOSFET?
So, actually, I like studying both, sir. Not only specific about MOSFET.
Okay, then which one has a high input impedance and why?
I think BJT has a high input impedance, sir.
Okay, why so?
Why so is that? I don't have a clear knowledge about it.
Okay.
Actually,
but you know, yeah. But you know the construction
yes,
of a MOSFET, right? You know the construction of a MOSFET, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me the expansion of the MOSFET?
Sir?
Can you give me what M stands for, O stands for, S stands for, F stands for, E stands for, T stands for in a MOSFET?
Okay. It's a metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor, sir.
Why is it called metal oxide?
Why is it called metal oxide MOS transistor? Because it's built up like that.
Okay, I appreciate that you have a very good knowledge about MOSFET, and I appreciate that you really like MOSFET, which I did not like when I was in third.
No, sir. I have no knowledge about it actually, but I like studying it. That's it.
Okay. That is the curiosity and the interest in the subject is very important. Be it any subject, no matter what your seniors say. Your seniors might say that it is a degree stopping paper. You might say they might say it is the toughest paper in engineering. It's whole itself. But if you have interest towards the subject, you will definitely be able to understand it. And plus, the next thing you have to do is you have to just have an open mind, broad mind, and listen to the teacher. If you do
Definitely,
that,
sir.
you can excel in any subject. Okay. Why is it called metal oxide? Because Gunachandran, you can remain on mic. You don't have to unmute it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So why? Because you know, I feel like talking to the laptop itself. If no one's answering me.
Okay, sure, sir.
Okay. It is called metal oxide because the gate terminal is not directly connected to the semiconductor thing of the MOSFET. You know, there's a N channel, P channel MOSFET, right? It is not directly connected to it. It will be there's an insulation called as silicon oxide. The silicon oxide layer will be present. Maybe if I show you the picture, you'll understand. See, here you have it. The gate terminal is not directly connected. There is a silicon oxide in between. Whereas if you see the drain and source, it is directly connected to the N substrate. If it is a P, if this is a P channel here, I'm sorry, if it is going to be N channel, it will here we will have P, right? P semiconductor, yes. P type semiconductor. This is the metal contact, right? This metal contact will be directly connected to N or P. Okay, but if you can see this gate, it is not connected directly to the channel here, nor it is connected to the P. It is insulated via a SiO2, right?
Yes, sir.
That is why this is called metal oxide semiconductor. And only because, see, in a BJT, if you see, you're not going to have any this silicon oxide. It is going to be directly connected, right?
Yes, sir.
So here there is going to be a high insulation material called SiO2. Now this is going to have this is going to give a very high resistance. Now tell me which device is going to have very high input resistance?
MOSFET, sir, of course.
Yeah. because there is a silicon dioxide insulation layer. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and then what was the next question I asked? Now what is the meaning? That is why it is called metal oxide. Now we will see why it is called field effect transistor. Now, when it is said field effect, which means there is some field and it is having some effect on the transistor. Am I right? Because
Yes,
we
sir.
cannot name a device just like that. And this MOSFET is also known as insulated gate field effect transistor, IG FET. Okay, but it is not used at all nowadays. This is also called insulated gate field effect transistor. There's an
Okay.
electric field here. Now, if we see the working of a MOSFET, here what will happen is, now if I connect some voltage here, that is positive on here, it is going to be a negative one. But if I consider any voltage here, it is going to induce charges, right? You have studied about a dielectric medium, how charges get induced in a dielectric medium in your electromagnetic theory. Have you all read electromagnetic theory?
Yes, sir.
So you will understand how charges get induced in a dielectric medium, right? That is,
Yes,
if
sir.
there
Yes,
is
sir.
going to be a positive charge here, a negative charge will be induced here, which will in turn induce a positive charge here. Okay, that is how charges gets induced in the dielectric, right?
Yes, sir.
So this field is going to have an effect, which means this field is going to attract some electrons from the p substrate into this channel, and it is going to have some electrons which are going to enable the conduction between this source and drain. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So that is why this is called as metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor.
The source in
Now,
the sense both the positive and the negative side, sir.
which one was positive, which one is negative? You're saying, telling me. Okay,
Uh,
this
uh,
plus and minus. Okay, VDS.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
You said
it
from
is.
the source, no, sir. It means the both the negative and the positive side of the transistor, right?
Yeah. From the source only, the electrons will start moving towards the drain,
Yes,
which
sir.
means the conventional current is in opposite direction, and that is why it is called as ID, drain current.
Okay, sir. Okay.
That is why see, any terminal in analog device is not named just like that. It is not like someone thought, oh, what do I name this? Okay, I'll call this source. Oh, what do I name this? Okay, I'll call it drain. No, it has every name has a purpose. This is called source because this has electrons which acts as source, and this is drain because what is a drain? If you have a drain, which means if you open that, all the water collected inside a tank or a pond is going to come out through it, right? That is why this terminal is called drain, because all the electrons come out through it. Okay,
Okay, sir.
that is why that's this name called source and drain. Now, starting with JFET, I'm starting with JFET because JFET has much more applications, and it has many more configurations than a MOSFET. And moreover, JFET and depletion type MOSFET. You all know that depletion type. There are two types of MOSFET, right? Depletion type MOSFET and enhancement type MOSFETs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gunachandran, is there anyone else in your class who will be very interactive like you? It would be more appreciated if they have their mic unmuted too.
I
You don't
don't
have to
think.
tell me. You don't have to tell me. Just text them to WhatsApp or something. Ask them to come online and ask them to unmute and answer. I'll answer my question.
Yeah, I'll
If they
definitely
say,
ask them. I'll text them,
yeah,
sir.
if they say yes or no, that is more appreciated. They don't have to give me the answers and all.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I'll try to call them, sir.
Okay. Now, starting with JFET, this is called junction field effect transistor. This is again, why do we call it as a JFET? Because there's going to be a junction. That junction is going to play a very important role in the current through it. Okay. Okay, Tarun, you can also unmute your mic and answer me. You don't have to tell me anything. You just say hi. That's enough. Tarun, are you there? Okay, fine. So, okay, now starting with the JFET, there's a junction. I'll show you the junction here. I'm sorry, wait.
Raghavendran,
Um,
I think you stopped sharing your screen.
1 minute, ma'am. Accidentally.
Okay. Proceed.
Now
Okay.
here there's a
Now you
junction. This is a P. This is N-channel JFET, which means the channel is an N-type semiconductor, and there are two small P-type doping. If I go to how this is built, it is going to be another big session. Big session. The thing is, here there's going to be some P types. The different types of doping that is done in a P and the N, right? So here we will have a small P type thing, and here there's going to be another P type. They are both interconnected. Okay. Now, if you closely observe, there's going to be a PN diode here, right? Is there anyone here? Gunachandran, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm there, sir.
Okay. Now you see that this is going to act like a diode, right? Now,
Yes,
when
sir.
there's no connection, I'm not biasing it, which means I'm not giving it any external voltage supply. What is going to happen is there's going to be a depletion layer here. You all know what a depletion layer is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's going to be a depletion layer, which means no further movement of charges from P into N or N from N into P is acceptable unless you provide some external voltage supply, which will help these charges give more, which will supply these charges with much more energy to cross the depletion layer. Only if I do that, there's going to be some conduction between these P and N type semiconductors, which eventually give you current from the source to the drain. Okay, unless it is not there, there's going to be a depletion layer between this P and N. Okay, so this is the symbol of a JFET. If someone likes, you can note it down. Otherwise, just keep on listening. Okay. If someone is interested, you can text me and I'll share the PPT with you. Now, let us go into the operation of a JFET. Okay, see, now what we do is, actually any construction, how you will understand is, you short circuit certain terminals, you apply voltage between certain terminals, and then you closely observe how it is all happening. And there's going to be a trial and error unless you have completely read the manual or the specification sheet. You'll not have a knowledge on how the device is going to perform. Now what we will do is, I'll tell you what are the few important connections that we make for us to understand how our device is operating. Now what we do is, we short circuit the gate with the source, and the source is also grounded, and I supply a small voltage between the drain and source, which is a variable voltage source, and I might increase or decrease it according to my own will. Okay, now what I do is, I'm going to increase it. Now what will happen is, as you observe here, the resistance throughout this JFET is varying, right?
Yes, sir.
Now let us assume that I'm dividing this JFET into 4 different parts, and every part has some resistance. And if I supply some voltage here, I'm saying a plus 2 volts, it is going to have different drops across this resistor, right? What
Yes,
is
sir.
semiconductor devices? It is a resistor. It acts as an insulator until certain conditions are met. Once the conditions are met, it starts acting as a conductor, right? Now this is which also means there's going to be some resistance. Now due to this resistance, there's going to be drops, and as you see in the top, there's going to be a 0.5 voltage drop. Everything is going to have 0.5 voltage drop. So there's going to be a difference in voltage drops across this N channel, right? Now, because of this N channel, now if you observe here, this is going to be a high volt 1.5, whereas here it is only going to have a 0.5 volt drop. So which means only 0.5 is available here, whereas 1.5 is available here, which means this is reverse biased, right? The N channel is connected to a positive terminal, whereas this is not connected to any terminal, which is in ground terminal, which means this is having a reverse bias, right?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
because of this reverse bias, what is happening is the depletion layer is not going to be uniform. It is going to be there's
Very.
going to be a wider depletion region here, and the depletion region is going to be small in the bottom. Okay. Now, what happens is if I keep on increasing this VD, what will happen is I will reach at a point called pinch off. As you see in this diagram, there's going to be a point called pinch off, which means there's no both the depletion layers are going to meet. Now the first question that should arrive in your mind is, so what does it mean? If the pathway is closed, the current is going to be zero, right?
Yes, sir.
But is it possible for the current to become zero?
So you're asking when the depletion layer is joined together, right?
Yeah.
No, sir.
Why no? No is the right answer, but why no?
So because there is no path for the resistor when both the depletion region are joined together.
Yes.
Resistance won't take place, sir, at that point.
Exactly. If there's no resistance, there's not going to be voltage drop. And this depletion layer that was caused only because of the current through it and the voltage drops across the resistors because of the current flowing through it is completely going to disappear if the current becomes zero, right? Then this depletion layer itself will not be available, because you all know when a voltage drop is going to appear is only when there is a current passing through the resistor. If there's no current at all, which means there's not going to be any current, right? There's not going to be any voltage drop. So this depletion layer which came into existence is not going to be there at all. So what we say is at some point the current is going to get saturated. This is what I've shown here. This VP is the pinch of voltage during which both the depletion layers meet. After this, no matter how high you turn the VDD, you might end up spoiling the device, but the current is not going to rise. It is going to remain saturated at this particular level. That is all is the functioning of a JFET. Now what we see is, what if we make it more reverse biased? How do I make it more reverse biased? How will it make a PN junction more reverse biased? If I connect a P with a negative terminal, it is going to get more reverse biased, right? So now what we were going to do is, I'm going to apply a negative voltage between the gate and source terminals. Now what will happen is, the same process is going to take place, but the pinch of voltage is not going to be very high. Let us say earlier the pinch of voltage was 2 volts. Now my agenda is to bring it closer to 1 volt or 0.5 volt, because if I keep on supplying a very high voltage like 2 volts, 5 volts, 10 ohms to a small electronic device, it will automatically get heated up. There will be thermal runaway, everything we'll see later. But so what we are going to do is, we are going to reverse bias it externally by making the gate more negative, so that the depletion layers meet very fast and the IDSS condition the saturation condition will reach quicker. This is what I'm doing. Now if I apply a less negative gate voltage, what will happen is the IDSS will decrease. But what happens is, you have to see this, the pinch of voltage is lower. Earlier it was something around 5. Now it is going to happen quicker. Now if I decrease it further, the pinch of voltage is going to decrease further. Now if I decrease it even further, I'm making it -4, which means the pinch of voltage is decreasing. Now finally, if I increase it to this -4 volts, what happens is the IDSS completely becomes 0. Is this clear? This is how a JFET works. I'm sorry, is there a question?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, so this is all how JFET is working. Initially, I'll just give a quick recap. What happens is, this is a P channel. There are two P-type P terminals are diffused into this. There's going to be a resistance. This resistance is uniform, but because of the voltage drop, because of the resistance increasing as we decreasing as we go down, the voltage drop is also going to decrease as we go down. Because of the voltage drop decreasing, there's going to be less negative reverse bias here, which means in the top there's going to be the depletion level is going to be very wide. In the bottom it is going to be very less. If I further increase this with this VDD, eventually there will come a point where these both meet. When these both meet, this ID is supposed to become 0. But if this ID becomes 0, there will be no voltage drop across these resistors, and the condition which led to this pinch off itself will disappear. So this ID will never become 0. It will only get saturated. When it gets saturated, no matter how high you increase this VDD, it is not going to have any effect on ID assist. Now the VP, if this is going to be 0 volt, VGS, if it is going to be 0, this VP value is going to be very high. My agenda is to decrease this VP value, so I am supplying it with a negative volt. If I increase a negative volt, this VP will also decrease, IDSS will also decrease. The pinch off will occur at very low voltages. This is all how JFET works. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
If there's any question, you can ask me.
Raghavendran, sorry
If
to
there's
interrupt.
any question,
Raghavendran, sorry to
Ma'am?
interrupt you. One student, Samyukta, she's asking one question: why P-type and P-type materials are interconnected? Is there any specific reason for that?
Yeah, because I have to supply equal voltages. Imagine if I give another voltage supply here. If this is connected to different voltage supply, I have to maintain these both common. Is there any point in doing it? And as well as you in an electronic device design, what you have to do is the number of sources should be very less. We have to use only one voltage source and connect it to both. It is completely up to you to connect another voltage source and maintain these both in the same value. You increase both by 1, you increase both by -2, you make both -3. Again, that is not acceptable. Unless your voltage source is not very powerful, you can use 2. Otherwise, you can use 1 itself and interconnect it. Is that clear, Samyukta?
yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. If it is possible, you can keep the mic unmuted. You don't have to mute it again. I'm happy that you asked the
Okay.
question. Okay. So the point is, you have to have minimum number of voltage sources. Already I have 2 here. Why make it 3? That is why I have only 1 and I've interconnected it. Is it clear? Okay. Now this is the transfer characteristic, which is nothing but VGS is a input thing, right? I'm controlling the entire device using VGS, which means this is an input parameter. ID is the output current. Now I sketch the characteristic between VGS and ID. This is the transfer characteristic. You see how it is getting plotted, right? When I increase the negative voltage, ID is going to increase, is going to decrease. As you see, when VGS is 0, I have 8 milliamps. When I make it -1, I have something -4.5. When I make it -2, I have only 2 amps. When I make it -3 volts, I have only 0.5. When I make it -4, I am getting 0. Is that clear? This is how transfer characteristics will be plotted. Now we are going to our the device that Punachandran likes the most, the MOSFET. Now we will see these two. There are going to be 2 types of MOSFETs, depletion type and enhancement type. And there's also a reason why depletion, we call it one as depletion and one as enhancement. Gunachandran, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Do you know why it is called, one is called depletion and why another one is called enhancement?
No, sir.
Okay. So what is the reason is?
Hello, students, kindly you can respond for the questions. Not only Gunachandran, even others can also respond. No, try to make the session interactive. Already people have studied this. Try to respond to the questions what is asking.
So the thing is, here this one is called depletion layer because here I'm going to deplete some electrons, whereas in the enhancement I'm going to increase the current by adding more electrons. That is the reason. There's one interesting thing. A depletion type MOSFET has 2 modes of operation, which are called depletion and enhancement. We will see. Now we will see how a depletion type MOSFET is working. Here
Depletion
again,
in the sense,
depletion in the sense.
It is the threshold voltage is negative in the place of positive, right, sir?
Which one is going to be negative in place of positive? You're asking me the gate source voltage.
Yes, sir. In D MOSFET.
Okay, now I'll explain. You will understand why it is called depletion and why the other one is called enhancement. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, like I analyzed the JFET, I'm going to analyze the D MOSFET also. What is happening is I'm going to short circuit this gate source and I'm going to ground this, and I'm going to supply some voltage between drain and source. Okay. Now, if I keep on increasing the voltage between the drain and source, which is this voltage, if I keep on increasing, what will happen is there's a channel here. There's going to be two n-type layers and there's going to be n channel between them. This entire substrate is P1 and there's a substrate that is connected. This is only for protection of the device. Now, what will happen is if I increase the voltage supply, this is going to be a negative terminal, right? This negative terminal is going to push away or repel the electrons in this one. So what will happen is these electrons will slowly start migrating towards this drain. So thus an ID current is established. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now because of this negative subterminal here, this is going to repel the electrons in this source. They are going to migrate towards the drain, and I'm going to have a conventional current from drain to source. Is that clear? Because current is what is current? It is a direct. The current moves in the direction that is opposite to electrons, because initially people thought current is because of positive charges. It is only later that they identified that it is because of negative charges called electrons. They did not want to mess up the entire circuit theory. What they did is they just called that current is always in the direction that is opposite to the movement of electrons. That is why we always say if the electrons is from source to drain, the current is from drain to source. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the next thing what I will do is I'll give some voltage supply between this gate and source. So imagine what I'm going to do is actually the circuit is not here, but I'll tell you orally, you'll be able to understand. Imagine first I'm giving some negative supply to this gate terminal. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Which means imagine initially I'm going to have a negative terminal here. I'm sorry, a positive terminal here and a negative terminal here. Okay, which means the voltage is negative. The gate is negative here, right? Now, because of this gate, what will happen is it will repel the electrons here in this channel. And what will happen is these electrons will move towards this P substrate. If I further increase this VGS, what will happen is it will attract the electrons from here. Okay, first I'll explain it. The electrons here will move towards the P substrate. Okay, all the electrons are moving towards the P substrate. Now what will happen is the electrons here are going to decrease, right?
Yes, sir.
The electrons are here going to decrease. So what will happen is the current will automatically decrease. This is what is shown here. Now when I make it more negative, the current is decreasing. Are you able to observe that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to make this positive. How do I make it positive? I'll make this line bigger. Okay. Now this is positive. So what will happen is I'm giving a positive supply. So what will happen? These electrons are bound to the positive terminal because opposites attract, right? This positive terminal is going to attract this negative electron, negative charge electrons. Further, what will happen is there are going to be electrons in this P substrate, right?
Yes, sir.
These electrons will also be attracted and they will start migrating towards this channel. They will enter this channel. Now what will happen is because of this, the number of electrons in this channel are going to increase. So the current will increase. That is what I've shown here. That is what I've shown here. If I increase this positive, if I increase it more positive, If I make it more positive, the IDSS is going to increase. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now, what you're going to observe here is, if I make it more negative, the electrons are getting depleted in that N channel and the current is going to decrease, right?
Yes, sir.
If I'm going to make everything, if I'm going to make it positive, the electrons are going to be enhanced or increased in the N channel and they are all going to increase, right? The current is going to increase, right?
Yes, sir.
So, D-type MOSFET works in two different modes, depletion mode and enhancement mode.
Yes, sir.
So, which means MOSFET has a depletion type MOSFET can also work as an enhancement MOSFET.
Enhancement type MOSFET. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. But why do I call that particularly as an enhancement type MOSFET and why don't I call depletion as DE MOSFET?
So because enhancement mode cannot work as depletion.
Exactly. This is the only mode in which E-type MOSFET will work. But whereas there are two different modes for a D-type MOSFET to work. So for naming convention, I can call one as depleted type MOSFET and the other one has enhancement type MOSFET. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you all would have studied BJT. You all will definitely know what is the relation between collector current, emitter current, and base current. What is the relation between emitter current, collector current, and base current? I guess there are two. I'm sorry. Again, come again. Okay, the emitter current is equal to base current and collector current, which means this emitter is only going to supply both, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is the relation. But which you have to notice one thing: it has a linear relation, which means there's going. If you 1 minute. If you see a BJT, there's going to be a linear variance here. Do you observe that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's going to be a linear variation. So analysis of a BJT is very simple because it has linear equations. That is why we all concentrate BJT because it is very easy to analyze because it has linear relation. Now, if you look at a JFET or a MOSFET, you will see that there's no linear variation between this voltage and current. These are varying in a parabolic way.
Yes, sir.
Aren't they? They are varying in a parabolic way. So what they did is a man called Shockley came and he gave a relation between this gate source voltage and the ID. Okay, this
Yes,
is the direct equation. There's no derivation. There's no use of reading the derivation. All you need to know is there's a derivation given by this man called Shockley.
Okay, sir.
He observed that we all observed, but he came up with the equation. That equation stood right, so he got all the credit. Now, even though if we give a different equation, then nobody is going to care about it. So, what is the point is there's a parabolic or a non-linear variation, and this is the thing. This is the equation that governs how this VP or VGS varies with ID. If I vary VGS, how this VP is going to vary and how IDS is going to increase or decrease. The entire process is governed by this single equation. If you substitute different values, now I'll tell you, if I make VGS negative, which means if I have -4, it is going to be 1 plus 4 by, we'll see VP is 2. 1 plus 4 by 2, what is the 3 IDSS? IDSS is going to increase. Now, if I decrease it, if I make VGS as -1, I'm sorry, if I make VGS as if I make it as positive, what will happen? It is going to become, the IDS is going to decrease. That is how this entire equation is governed. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we will go into this is just P type. Instead of N channel here, instead of P channel here, we have N channel here. there's going to be p substrates, and there's going to be a p channel, and the entire thing is going to be reversed. Earlier, if I gave a negative voltage, electrons started decreasing. Here, if I give a positive voltage, the holes will start decreasing. And here, if I give a negative voltage, the holes will start increasing. That is how the enhancement and depletion type model is going to vary. Okay, that is all.
Okay, sir.
Now we will go into enhancement type mode. Now here, in enhancement type MOSFET, the only prime difference is there's no channel between these two.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
is it clear? And if you
Yes, sir.
observe, earlier, only because there was a channel already, even if this VGS was 0, this voltage was enough to make electrons move from source to drain. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But here in enhancement type mode, if you observe, there's no channel. No
There's
matter
no path
how
through.
high, no matter how high I give a voltage supply externally, there's no moment. There's not going to be any movement of a single electron from source to drain. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what is the condition here is there's a minimum voltage that you need to supply here, which will give a very small or a very minimum width of channel across this gate terminal, which will enable the electrons to move from source to drain. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So there's going to be a minimum requirement. I have a minimum requirement. That minimum voltage is called as threshold voltage.
Okay, sir.
Only when VGS is equal to that VTH, which I call as threshold voltage, there will be any movement of any current in this enhancement type MOSFET. Now we will see the different modes of operation. Since this is a P type, here if I give a P supply, electrons will be attracted. Electrons will move from this P substrate and they will accumulate here and they will form a channel. And further, if I increase this voltage, what will happen is electrons will move from this terminal to that terminal. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is all. But what if I give a negative voltage here? If I make this negative, what will happen?
Reversed. Actually.
Which means there will be no channel here, right? No electrons will be attracted. Only holes will get attracted. Holes are not. This is not a N-type thing. So there's not going to be any current. That is all. This is the difference. So
Okay, sir.
here giving a negative voltage is not going to have any impact on this MOSFET. It will only end up damaging the MOSFET. It will not give any current. Whereas if you give a positive voltage, there is going to be enhancement of electrons across the gate terminal, and thus there will be some current flowing from source to drain. This is why I call this as an enhancement type MOSFET, whereas that has a depletion type MOSFET. There, if I give a supply, the electrons are going to decrease. The electrons are going to be depleted. Here, if I'm giving a supply, electrons are going to be increased. Electrons are going to be enhanced. That is why I call this as enhancement type MOSFET. Is that clear?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Now we need to understand how a pinch off occurs in an E-type MOSFET, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a beautiful thing. This is not given in many books, and I'm sure it is not given in Bakshi as well. Here, if you observe, you all know what KVL is, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if this is VDG, and this this node is called VGS. I'm sorry, and this is called VDS. What is VDG? VDS minus VGS, right? This is a positive terminal. This is a negative terminal. The voltage across positive and negative is VP minus VN. Here VP is VDS. VN is VGS. That's all.
VGS.
Now,
Okay.
now you need to observe, if I increase VGS, what will happen is this gate terminal, this voltage VDG is going to decrease, or let us say VGS remains constant. If I decrease VDS, if I decrease VDS, what will happen is this VDG is going to be, if I increase VDS, what is going to happen is this VDG is going to become
Decrease.
less negative. Yes. So what will happen is this VDG voltage will decrease. So what will happen is these electrons are going to, the control of this terminal in this region over this electrons is going to be less, because this is not more positive. Whereas if you see this is very positive, highly positive. This one is not very highly positive. It is this is decreasing only because of this equation, which is if VGS increase, this positive voltage across VDG is going to decrease. So
Decrease.
if the voltage is going to be less, if the positive voltage is going to be less, how can it control many electrons? How can have a hold over all the electrons that are near its junction, near its layer? It can't, right? So automatically what will happen is the electrons, it will lose control over the electrons. These electrons will escape. Only few electrons can be sustained here, and only those electrons can contribute to a current. And eventually, if it further decreases, if this VDG further decreases, there will come a point where only one electron will be at this terminal, and only that electron will be responsible for the current to go from source to drain. Is that clear? That
Yes, so the path
voltage,
gets decreased. Okay.
yeah, because this voltage, if I make it, if I decrease the positivity, if I make it lesser and lesser and lesser positive, it will eventually lose control over these electrons, and this channel will decrease.
Gets okay.
This is also called modulating it, modulation of a channel. I am modulating it, I'm changing it, I'm controlling it. This is called modulating of a channel, which is possible only in a E-type MOSFET. There you control. In a D-type MOSFET, you can only control the number of electrons inside a channel. You cannot vary the channel, whereas here you can vary the entire channel. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And this is just a characteristic. Here, if I make it more positive, it is going to the pinch off is going to occur earlier, because I'm making it. See, I'm making it more positive, which means if I increase the positive thing, this VDG is going to decrease, right? If I increase this will decrease. So that is why this pinch off will occur earlier. The saturation of IDSS will occur earlier. If I make it, that's all. But if I make it negative, there will be no current, because
Yes,
a
sir.
negative cannot attract electrons, right? If I make this terminal negative, no electrons will be attracted. There'll be no channel created. There'll be no current from drain to source. That's all.
Yes.
And again, this was not given by Shockley, though it closely resembles Shockley. Someone else derived it. It is not Shockley. This K value can be found out from the specification sheet, because this is a constant for any value. VT is a constant. What they will do is they'll just give you a value. If VGS is kept at 5 volts, ID will be 3 volts. VT is 3, 2. So what will happen? ID is 5 milliamps. This is 5 millivolts. This is 2 millivolts. 3 by 3, 1. So K value is 1. That is all. You have to find this K value from the specification sheet. If it is a problem, they will give you the values of one particular value for ID for a given VGS. Using that, you will be able to find K, and if you substitute it, you'll be able to plot this characteristics. That's all. Here you can
Okay, sir.
observe there's no negative, there's no current. Even if you drag it to the negative, it is only going to be 0, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is just a P channel. This is nothing. If you make it, if everything reverses, you reverse. For you to remember, I'm telling you, just reverse every terminal, everything here, make this all positive, and that is how you get a P type. That's all. Where plus is there, put minus. Where minus is there, put plus. You have you're given yourself a P type transfer characteristic. That's all.
Okay, sir.
These are the different types of symbols. Yeah, as you see, this shows that a channel is present, and they have shown there's a gap, right? In BJT, you will not have this gap at all, right? Because this gap is here only to say that it is insulated. The gate is not directly in connection with the substrate. It is insulated. That is why you will have shown separately. Gate is separate, and this is separate. In BJT, you will have it like this, right? You all know what a BJT symbol is, right?
Yes, sir.
Here it is shown like this because there is no isolation, whereas here it is isolated. That is why it is shown like this. And here this is the channel. Here the channel is a solid because it is always present. Here the channel is here it is not solid. It is given as a dotted line because it is abstract. It will form only if the gate is negative or positive, depending on whether it's N or P. That is how this is. The symbol itself has a meaning. The symbol itself defines its characteristics. The symbol itself say how it will operate. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I'm sorry, but if it is a live session, I'll be able to understand whether all of you are getting it or not. I'll be able to repeat it no matter how many times. But now I don't understand whether many people are understanding this or not. The main purpose of this entire session is not for me to teach you everything about analog electronics. It is just to kindle your interest in the subject so that you don't find it difficult or boring or unnecessary for an electrical engineer to learn. The main agenda is to make you understand that the subject is easy to analyze and understand.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the next thing, and now we've seen about the construction and the working of MOSFET and all. But the thing is, you have to fix the point. What is called biasing of any network? You all would have studied biasing of BJT, and some of you would have studied biasing of a FET. Why do we bias a circuit? What is it necessary to bias a circuit? I'll post that the question so that someone who's interested will answer. Or if you don't know, tell me no. If you know, tell me yes. Why do we bias a circuit? What is it necessary to bias? We all know how it is constructed. We all know how it is going to operate. Why bias it particularly? If I get one no, I'll start with this. I'll proceed with the session. Just tell me whether you know or not.
Students, kindly post your response. Doesn't matter whether the answer is right or wrong. You just respond to the questions.
Anyone? Tarun and okay. To conduct current. Okay, good. To conduct current, which means to make current flow, what we do is called biasing. Okay, control current. That's a very good answer. But we already control current, right? I vary VGS, I vary VGS. Our current gets controlled. I can modulate a channel. Why do biasing? Why should we do biasing?
To
It
maintain the
runs
active region, sir.
exactly to maintain the device in one particular point. Unless I go and vary the current or the voltage, something, it should not vary. Unless I vary the input voltage, it should not vary at all. It should remain fixed. If I have to say, like I nailed it to the floor, it has to remain there. It has to stick to that operating point. It should not just like that move or on its own. It cannot go to one value because if it is not fixed at one point, if external things are going to control, if temperature is going to control it, if the humidity is going to control it, if external factors are going to have an effect on the circuit that I've designed, then I'm a stupid engineer. Unless I make a circuit which only I can control, I'm not a good engineer. If the factors, external factors, ghosts in the room are going to control the current and voltage in the circuit, then I'm not an engineer, right? That is why I bias it. I bias it to fix the operating point. Now, you all would have surely studied the biasing of a BJT, but this biasing is very difficult. You know why? Because in BJT we have linear equations. Something, some elimination method, some substitution method I can put, and then I can happily derive an equation. But in a MOSFET, it is not possible at all. Here you have non-linear equations. And how many of us know to solve a non-linear equation? We have a quadratic formula, but that alone is not necessary, right? Sometimes the answer has to come in a square root. You need to be able to plot that. All that is not possible. So what we do is, in biasing of FETs, mostly we go for graphical method, which does not involve so many mathematical calculations. All we do is we will plot it on a graph. We will identify one point, and based on that point, we will find another value. That will be a mathematical, because some equations will be linear, some will be non-linear. As I've given you, ID is a non-linear equation, whereas VGS, output voltage, will be a linear equation, right? It is going to be a simple KVL. You will see in the next circuit. It will be a simple KVL. So what I'm going to do is to find that non-quadratic, to find that quadratic value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a graph. Using a graph, I'll find out the value of ID. And with that ID value, I'll find VGS. We'll see how it is being done. So this is the first bias, fixed bias configuration. In a DC, you will always open circuit this capacitor. So I end up with such a circuit. To make it easier, I've just closed it. Now what happens is, okay, I did not close it. The author of this book from which I took this content closed it. So what will happen is, this VDD is here. Now to find ID, all I need is, I know the transfer characteristic. I know how VGS and ID varies. I plotted this. This I can plot. Okay, now I'm going to find ID. How am I going to find ID? I'm going to find KVL to input. And here, if I apply KVL to input, VGS minus VRS is equal to 0. Where is VRS here? VGS minus VRS is equal to 0. This is how you apply KVL to a circuit, right?
Yes, sir.
So from this, I've found the formula for VGS is equal to minus VRS. VRS is nothing but IDRS. So VGS is equal to minus IDRS. This is nothing but a straight line. I plot that straight line. This point, which intersects with the transfer characteristics of the device, will give me the operating point, which is ID point, and VGS point will be obtained. Now using this ID, I can easily find VDS. How do I find VDS? VDD minus IDRD minus VDS minus VRS is equal to 0. This is how the equation is framed, and I know the value of ID, and using that, I just find out the value of VDS. Is that clear? Because operating point is nothing but determining what is the output coordinates. What are the output coordinates? ID and VDS. Output voltage and current are the output coordinates, right? I found ID using the graph, and from that ID value, I found this. Because in BJT, what we will do is, we will find IB, base current value. Using that base current value, we will find the output value. What is the output value? IC. IC value is, IC is equal to beta IB. That is all. I've just to every time beta value is going to be 100 or 200, or in some cases it will be given infinity. If it is given infinity, IC is equal to IE directly. That's all. If it is not, I'll just multiply the value that I get. ID value which I get, I'll multiply it with 100, and then I'll say, okay, I found ID. But which is not possible here. I have to find ID using a graph, and using that ID value, I substitute it in this output circuit, and then I get this value. And here you can see the mathematical approach of it. I'm just finding a quadratic equation, and then you know this value, right? ID is equal to minus B plus or minus root of B square minus 4AC by 2A. Using that equation, I can find ID. Again, why use all this formulas? In semester exams, we can have calculators. Whereas in IES and GATE exams, calculators are not permitted. We have calculators that is of no use. So we only go for this graphical method. That is why mostly will not have questions from this, because you won't be provided with the graph sheet to plot the graph and see. Now, the next one is voltage divider bias. Name, reason. Okay. Now, I've already told you, everything is named only for a reason. I'm calling it self bias because this value itself biases it. This ID current or the VGS that I give itself biases the entire circuit. That is why it is called self bias. Here it is called the voltage divider bias, because the voltage that I supply here will get divided using this R1 and R2, which act as a potential divider circuit. So this is why it is called as a voltage divider bias. Here, and one main thing that you need to notice is the IG value is 0. As I already told you, the gate is isolated, so it has a very high input resistance. So I assume that IG is 0. Okay, this is all ideal conditions. In reality, there will be a very small current flowing, but here I take IG as 0. Now, what is VG? VG is R2 VDD. VDD is given here. VDD into R2 divided by R1 plus R2. This is the value of VG, but IG is 0. And again, I'm applying, this is not just like that, we cannot do it. What I will do is, if for EC analysis, if you have studied self-biasing in BJT, you would have studied, there'll be a Thevenin's equivalent circuit. and from that we'll be deriving it. Here it is not necessary. I'll just show you here itself. VG minus VGS minus VRS is equal to 0. And from here, I know what is VGS value. VGS is equal to VG minus VRS. VRS is IDRS. By ID is equal to IS. That is one reason. Because here S is given. I should say source current. Why am I saying drain current? Because normally their emitter current is equal to base current plus collector current. Similarly, here source current should be equal to gate current and drain current. But the thing is, gate current is 0. So source current is always equal to drain current. There is no compromise in this. In BJT, it might vary. The collector current may be equal to emitter current or may not be equal to emitter current. That depends upon the value of beta. If beta is infinitely high, collector current will be equal to emitter current. If the beta is of some fixed value like 100 to 100, the emitter current will not be equal to collector current. The collector current will always be lesser than emitter current. Here, since IG is always 0, no matter what, no matter who says no, IG is going to be 0. So source current will always be equal to drain current. Is that clear? Now again, I've formed a straight line equation. Using the straight line equation, I'm going to see this. Now you need to notice that the slope of this is going to decrease if I increase the value of RS, right? The slope is going to increase if I reduce the value of RS. The slope is going to decrease if I reduce the value of RS. Now what you need to know is, we always have this mentality of finding it, of marking the Q point somewhere in between, because so that if I apply some input circuit, it will be able to swing properly. It has to swing like this. I'm sorry, it is not a perfect sinusoidal wave, but it has to swing like this. If it is going to be here, what will happen is some might go to 0, and all I will get is 0 values here, which means everything that is under this is going to be 0. I don't want this. I want maximum swinging of current and voltage. That is why we always prefer the operating point to be somewhere in the middle. If you see the BJT also, you will be able to understand that it is always in the middle. Now, from here, I'll find the value of ID. Using that, I'll know I'll perform KVL for the output node, output loop, and then using the ID value, I'll substitute and I'll get myself the value of VDS. That's all. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear? Okay. Next one comes common gate configuration. Same. There are, common base means it has to be, the MOSFET should not be standing. It has to be sleeping, right? Similarly, for common gate also, it should not be standing, it has to be sleeping. Now, since it is sleeping, what we have is, it can be shown like this or this. Everything is the one and the same. So I'll go with this circuit. The capacitors will be in the DC analysis, you always open circuit as a capacitor. So this will be remote. KVL I'm applying to the input. VGS minus ISRS plus VSS is equal to 0, because VSS is going to be a negative value. So here, if I apply KVL, it will be a plus VSS. And using this, I frame the equation. Using the equation, I'll plot the graph. From the graph, I'll get ID value. Using the ID value, I'll perform KVL on the output loop. And using this ID value, I'll get the value of VDS. In BJT, what I'll do something. I'll find the value of IB. I'll substitute IC is equal to beta IB, and then I'll find IC. And using IC, I'll find VCE, which is the output voltage. Here, what I do, here I find the value of ID. I find the equation. I use the straight line equation. I find the operating point from the using graphical analysis. From the graphical analysis, I find the value of ID, and using that ID, I'll perform KVL on the output loop. And from applying ID in the KVL loop, I'll find the value of VDS. That is how it operates. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now here, this is biasing of a DMOS, which is one and the same. Here I'll again find equation. That equation. Whereas one thing you need to notice is here it is in JFET. Everything is the same for FET under JFET under D type MOSFET. If I just change the symbol here, if I make it like this, instead of this, if I keep it like, that's all. Everything, if I do this, this is going to be a FET equation. Everything is one and the same. Only one difference is, as I already told you, a D-type MOSFET can also act as in an enhancement type mode, right? So this I've shown here. Operating point can also go into the positive values of VGS. This is the only difference. It depends only upon the value of RS. As I've already told you, if I keep on decreasing the value of RS, what will happen? This line will become more and more slow. The slope will increase, and at one point, what will happen? It will reach here, and it will intersect the curve here. This is where it will intersect. Whereas this is not possible for an enhancement type MOSFET. So in an enhancement type MOSFET, we have only one type of biasing. I'll show you that too. But you all get an idea, right? Why we have a, you need not understand the equation. You need not see whether the equation is right or wrong. The thing is, you need to know what to do. When someone gives you a circuit, you should be able to, even if you're not going to get, if you're not able to get the answer, you need to be able to say what you need to do to get the answer. If you say that, they're going to be happy. If you don't say that, there's no point. Yeah, again, this is just one thing, one biasing network I've shown for enhancement type MOSFET. Here RG is here. The interesting point you need to notice is RG I would have short circuited here because IG value is 0. Since IG value is 0, RG voltage drop will be 0, so I can short circuit it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. Here using this VDS is equal to VGS, I've applied this, and I've just plotted this plotted the straight line. I've obtained the point where it intersects. I found the value of ID, and using ID I will apply it to the KVL to the output, and then using here ID I'll substitute, and I'll find VDS. That is all. This is all about MOSFET. If anyone has any question, you can ask me. Any question at all, you can ask me. And this is just another voltage divider circuit. That's all. I don't want to repeat the same thing. I find this, I find ID, I'll substitute here, I'll find a VDS, that's all. So here you all have a basic idea on how a MOSFET works, and how you need to bias it, and how you need to analyze it. Is it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So did you learn anything new, or did I just repeat everything that you already know?
We got something new, sir.
Okay. So now you don't find MOSFETs to be complicated, right?
No, sir.
I'm not said everything about MOSFET. It is not that I'm an analog guru and I can tell you everything about analog devices. It is not like that. The main point is for you to understand that analog devices is not as difficult as it might seem to be. It is easy. It is very easy compared to many other subjects that we have. Okay, now I'll just ask you a few questions. Do you all know network theory? How many of you here know network theory, like completely? Not completely. Nobody knows completely. Who can answer it better? How all you can analyze a circuit? Who all has an idea on how to approach a problem given to you in network theory? Who handle network theory for you? Gunachandran, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Raghavendran, they have studied circuit theory, not network theory. That's why they are keeping quiet, I think.
Okay. Both are same. Circuit theory, network theory, both are same. Who handle the circuit theory?
Some E&I staff, some E&I staff.
Oh. Because I'm not degrading any department, but all staff teachers, it'll be a new approach. So okay, now we will go to BJT. I'm going to this BJT, as you see, there will be going to there are many there are numerous things to say, but I'm going to make it very simple for you. I'll just show you some color circuits, and with that I'll end this session. Okay. Someone say yes or no, please.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Please.
Okay, now you all know how a BJT works. Now if you open a textbook, they'll give for first 5 pages how a BJT works. They will like they invented BJT, they will analyze every part. They'll say how emitter is done, how to dope a emitter. I'll say who found emitter, who named it emitter, who changed the name emitter, everything they'll say. But all that is not necessary. All that is not, but you need to write everything in the exam, right? You need to fill up the pages for 5 pages. Every 60 mark
Yes,
question
sir.
you need to write for 5 pages.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now here, there's only 3 to 4 points that you need to know when it comes to a BJT. If you know that, that's all. You know what how a BJT works. There's no need for all the other theories. First point I'm going to say is how the doping varies. First thing is emitter will be very highly doped, collector will be doped moderately, and base will be doped very less. And as I already said, nobody does everything out of their own will. I cannot go change. I cannot just go and make base highly doped than the emitter. I cannot dope it higher than the doping of an emitter because I have a reason for everything. I'll tell you what. First thing I'll tell why emitter is highly doped, because emitter acts as the source. It has to supply
Yes.
electrons to the base and collector. Only if I
Yes.
have more, I can give to someone. If I am at the
Yes.
flagging, if I lack resources, how will I give to someone? That is why emitter is always it is the rich one in a BJT. It has more money, it has more electrons. It can give to a collector and the base. Okay. Now what I'm
Yes.
going to do is this base. No, it is just going to it is useful in modulating how everything happens. This base makes these both junctions interact. Only because there are going to be two junctions, it makes it something different than the diode. If I have one single junction, why should I study a different chapter called BJT? I can have a simple diode, right? This has two junctions, but these two junctions should interact. This interaction is given by this base, but I don't want my money to go and waste through the base. So what I'll do is I'll conduct it, I'll dope it very less, which means first thing the width of the base is very less. Okay, if you say the transistor is wide, the width of the base is going to be very less. If I should give you past actual numbers, I'll tell you the ratio. This is the ratio 150 is to 1. A transistor's width, if it is going to be 150, the base width is going to be 1. Okay, so you can see how narrow the base is, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So which means you all know what is the relation between resistance and the area. Just say directly proportional or indirectly proportional, and give me the relation. It is a very important relation. You are all supposed to know that because you're all electrical engineers. You need to know what is the relation between resistance and area. Indirect. What is the relation? Lepakshi. What is the relation? Every answer is right, but give me the relation.
It's directly proportional.
Exactly. Dakshasena, awesome. R is equal to rho L by A, which means as area decreases, resistance will increase. So the main purpose of keeping the base width very less is I need to increase the resistance very high. I need to have the resistance very high. And what is rho, Dakshasena? What is rho? Rho stands for exactly. What is the inverse of resistivity? What is the inverse of resistivity? Exactly. And okay, I've asked enough questions. Now, how can I vary conductivity? By keeping the number of electrons low, right? If there's going to be many electrons, the conductivity is going to increase. The name conductivity, what is conductivity? Which means ability to conduct current. How will it conduct the current? If there's going to be more electrons, if I keep the number of electrons very less, how will be the conductivity? It will be less. Now, to make IE collector current equal to emitter current, what I need to do is I need to increase the resistivity of the base by many folds so that all the emitter current will go to collector current. This is not the proper explanation, but I'm telling you what is efficiency output by input, right? Are you all studying transmission and distribution now?
Yes, sir.
So what is efficiency? output by input, right? Now let us say output is IC and input is IE. For it to be 100%, IC should be equal to IE, right?
Yes, sir.
Now for IC to be equal to IE, IB should be very less, right? Now for IB should be to be very less, the resistance should be very high, right? How do I make the resistance very high? First thing, I decrease the area. Now when I decrease the area, the resistance increases. Next, I make the conductivity very less, which means I increase the resistivity. When I increase the resistivity, the base resistance is going to increase. Now, by decreasing the area and by increasing the by decreasing the area and decreasing the conductivity, decreasing the doping, decreasing the number of electrons in the base, I've made it highly resistant. That is how I minimize the current through the base. So when the on a good day, on a good transistor, what will happen is IB will be very less, that IC will be equal to IE. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, second thing you need to know is, as I already told you, every device has a meaning for its name. I cannot call it bipolar because it has bipolar disorder. It's a joke, someone. Okay. Okay. Now this is called bipolar because there's going to be two polarities. What are the two polarities in a semiconductor? A hole and electron. Now, if I call, no, I cannot call it as a hole and electron. That would be very vague. I need to call it as majority charge carrier and minority charge carrier, right?
Yes, sir.
Only if so, a bipolar junction transistor means there are going to be two charge carriers, majority charge carriers and minority charge carriers. They are both going to be contributing something for the current, and that is why I call this as bipolar junction transistor. I call this bipolar junction transistor, which automatically means the MOSFET device is FET devices are monopolar. Second thing you need to notice is here bipolar junction transistor is a current control device, whereas a FET device is voltage control device. I can prove that to you. I controlled everything using what value? VGS. I varied the gate voltage to vary the operation of a MOSFET. So using that, I controlled the entire performance of the MOSFET. So MOSFET is a voltage control device, whereas BJT is a current control device. I told you that the MOSFET has very high input impedance, and I did tell you what is the reason. So the other thing is bipolar junction transistor has very less input impedance. Second thing is this bipolar junction transistor, again, it has three modes: common emitter, common base, common collector. And MOSFET also has three modes: common gate, common source, common drain, but it is not important. That is why we did not go to that. Yeah, first thing is I'm taking a PNP transistor. Even if you have studied in 11th 12th standard physics also, they have taken PNP because PNP is easy to explain. Because every time I say NPN transistor, right, I have to say electrons are moving this side, current is moving this side, electrons are moving here, current is moving here. That is not necessary for a PNP. That is the main reason why any author, any teacher will always begin the working of a transistor by saying PNP. How many of you here from CBSE?
Around 10 to 15 students, Raghavendran.
In our batch, we had only 3-4. But when CBSE students are there, this session is supposed to be very interactive because, CBSE students are encouraged to ask questions. But in matriculation schools, they are very strict and they don't let us ask. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You are from matriculation or CBSE?
Matriculation, sir.
Matriculation schools are very strict, right?
Not that so, sir.
No, you're supposed to reproduce exactly what is there in the textbook, right?
Yes, sir.
But CBSE students have the privilege of writing on their own words. So that is why CBSE students can ask questions. They usually ask questions. They interrupt the staff. They don't let staff teach at all. That is what CBSE students do. Because I've seen CBSE students do.
The reason is the students got fed up with the lockdown period. They are very tired in being inside the home. That's all.
Yeah, but you all need to understand that once this lockdown ends, we are all going to face serious problems in employment and all. The employment opportunities are going to decrease. The more you're strong in your subject, the more you utilize this lockdown period only, you're going to frame yourself a very good future. Because I'm telling you, let me be very frank. Many of the students start reading every subject only after they come out of their college. But you know, all they will be able to do is just read it from the exam point of view. They'll not be able to answer any question, or unless it is posted as a question, they'll not be able to attempt that question. Unless you know the concept, this is the good time to read your concept, because after this you will have time only for attempting different exams. You will not be having time to prepare and all. So this is a good time. I suggest that you buy good books and then you start preparing, because you've already completed network theory and EDC. Network theory forms a basis for every other subject. Unless you know network theory, you cannot do power system analysis. It is not that you'll not be able to do it at all. You'll find very difficult, because I'm telling you, um, when I was in college, every question that was posted, I used to attempt it using only KVL method. How many of you here like KVL method more than KCL method? Like you'll be every time a question is given, what you'll do is you'll form loop currents I1, I2, I3, and then you'll start analyzing it, and then you'll elimination method. You'll be able to find the answers. How many of you used to do that? Someone say me. Yes. Say something, right? Because you all attempted that subject circular theory. Tell me who likes KCL more than KVL? Both were given by the same scientist Kirchhoff, so there's no harm in liking one thing more than the other. Who likes KCL more than KVL? Gunachandran, which one do you prefer to solve a question? Do you go with KCL or KVL?
So it depends upon the question in the question paper, sir.
Okay, generally, if a question is, if you can solve a question using both the methods, which one would you prefer?
I'll go with KVL method, sir.
Yeah, that seems to be easy. Like you don't have to analyze the circuit, you don't have to understand the node voltages. Unless and until it is asked, I'll never attempt a KCL in college.
Yes, sir.
Only if they say solve using KCL, find the node values using KCL, I'll not go for KCL at all, because KCL is very difficult. That is how it will seem to be in first. But once you start understanding KCL, you'll find out that it is very easy.
Yes, sir.
So now I'm telling you, when you're given a question in circuit theory, try attempting it using KCL. Now coming back to this BJT, I've biased it and all. I'm not going to bore you with keeping 1 0, keeping one operator, keeping this operator, keep this 0. This is all not necessary. I'll just give you everything. What first thing is, nobody is going to change the bias and all. You know what is the saturated condition, you know what is the cutoff region, you know what is active region. To keep it in active region, this has to be forward bias, this has to be reverse bias. To keep it in cutoff region, both should be reverse bias. To keep it in saturation, both should be forward bias. If I keep this forward bias and this reverse bias, what will happen is I've reached the condition called reverse active region, in which the amplification will be very less, and so what will happen is it will be used as an attenuator, whereas a cutoff region will be used as a off switch. In a saturation, I can use a BJT as an on switch. When someone asks you what are the different uses of a BJT, first thing you will say is it operates as a switch. The next question they will ask is, what is the criteria that the BJT needs to meet to be operated as a switch? You need to say, for it to be in on condition, you need to keep the BJT in saturated mode. For it to be in off condition, you need to keep it in cutoff mode. Now you need to know what is cutoff, what is saturated. You need to, ma'am.
Yes, Raghavendra, tell me, ma'am.
how long is the session? How long can I prolong the session?
Till 1 we can have, but anyway, we are going to have one more session on 3rd, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Till 1 I have scheduled this session.
Okay, ma'am.
You try to attend to that, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
And one more thing, at the end, you better tell me the topics on which you are going to give a session on 3rd. Then it's easy for the students to refresh with those
Yes,
concepts.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, coming back to the working of BJT, as I told you, what is the main purpose of a BJT? For it to act as a switch, right? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
No, that is not the function of a BJT at all. For something to act as a switch, I can use any device. Why do I use BJT in particular? Everyone says BJT. Every class begins with BJT. Every staff says BJT. Every subject begins with BJT. Why BJT? What is there with BJT? This some very important purpose that BJT serves that no other device invented so far is able to meet, because after this we had so many devices. After this MOSFET IGBT came. After IGBT, with IGBT we had SCR. We have everything is there. But why is everyone sticking to this BJT? Why not discard it? Why not remove it from the syllabus? What is this BJT doing? Why in spite of having so many devices after BJT, what makes this BJT so particular? Why is everyone obsessed with BJT? Well, am I now starting BJT? When one says transistor, unless he says it's a field effect transistor, he is referring to BJT. Why? Why so? Have you ever asked this question?
Because the rate of current it amplifies.
Exactly. It is an excellent amplifier. That is why it is. If you say amplifier, you are saying BJT. Even we all say operational amplifier. We say operational amplifier is what is used widely. But what is inside operational amplifier? We have differential amplifiers. We have actual amplifiers. We have power amplifiers. Everything is all inside an op amp. But what is there? It is all BJT. Mostly they use BJT unless on certain conditions, when the input resistance is to be very high, we will use MOSFET. Unless and until that condition arrives, we use BJT, because BJT has an excellent amplifying tendency. That is why we use BJT. In common collector, if you use, it will be just a emitter follower circuit or a voltage buffer. In a common base, it is not going to have it is not going to amplify very well. But in common emitter mode, that emitter mode is a golden mode in which the BJT will amplify current into many folds, that it acts as an excellent current amplification circuit that no other device can meet. Is it clear? I'm taking it as an ace. So what happens is, as I told you, emitter junction should be forward biased, collector junction should be reverse biased for it to be in active region. I'm sorry, for it to be in amplifying mode. So what I'm doing, I'll tell you how it operates. Here what happens is the holes. Okay, until now it was all introduction. Now I want you all to pay attention, so that these 3 points that I'm going to say next will help you understand how BJT works. And you don't have to refer any other book other than what I'm going to say, because all other book will have very deep introductions, other many different operating modes, which is all unnecessary. I'll just tell you what happens. Here, this is a positive terminal. Holes will be pushed and everything will go here. What will happen is some of the holes will try to escape via the base. That is why I made the base area very small, and then I doped it very less, so that the resistivity is very high, and mostly all the holes will enter into this collector junction. Now if you notice, these holes are majority carriers when it goes from P substrate to N substrate, aren't they? Someone say yes or no, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now when it goes, whereas these holes, when they go from N type to P type, what will happen? In N type, these these holes act as a minority carrier. So when they move from N to P type, they are all minority carriers. This is also a reason why we call it as bipolar, because in one junction it acts as it acts as a majority, in other junction it acts as a minority. Now there's going to be a minority carriers actually going from this terminal to this terminal. Again, here it is negative. Electrons are going to be pushed from the collector. So when the electrons are being pushed, what will happen? The current is going to be in this direction. Again, here this positive terminal is going to push the holes from this n type into the p type, and then again electrons from the base are going to enter into this junction. So this current is going to also happen. That this all is happening. Okay, this is how a BJT operates. You don't even have to consider about this thing. Just know that when positive supply is given, the holes get repelled. They move from p type to n type. The n type is a very small width, and then it also has a very low doping condition. So the conductivity is going to be very less, which means the resistivity is going to be very high, and the width is very small, which means the area is very small, which means the resistance is very high. And so most of the holes, they cross the base junction and they enter the collector terminal. This is all how a BJT works. That is all you need to know. Okay, next one is, okay, now you all would have studied the characteristic of a BJT. Mostly they would have just shown it like this, right?
Yes,
How a
sir.
common emitter works. They will not show this thing. Like this variance will not be shown. They'll show it mostly like they are all parallel to each other. But in actual, what was happening is they're not parallel. They are all varying by some value, which means if you extend it behind, what will happen is they will meet at a point, and that voltage is called as early voltage. It is not named early voltage because it comes early. It is called early voltage because it was named after a scientist called James Early, who found out this effect. That is why it is called as early effect. This early effect name is very highly misleading. We call it early effect because we think it happens early, but no. It is named early effect because the person who named it, who found out this effect, is called James Early. That is why this is called as early effect. Now, the thing you need to notice is, because of this early effect, the width of this VCE, which means if it is all going to be parallel, as I've shown it in dotted line, it means that VCE has no role on IC, right? VCE does not control IC. Only then they will all be parallel. Now, since they are not parallel, which means VCE controls IC, which is not acceptable. We don't want our output current to depend on the output voltage. We want IC and VCE to be independent. This is what the main problem is. Now, because of this VCE, what is going to happen is the base width. What is collector emitter junction? This collector emitter voltage, right? VCE. Because of this voltage across this VCE, this base width is also getting modulated. And if the base width further decreases, the IB is going to decrease and the current is also going to decrease. So if VCE is going to be high, which means IC is completely independent, then only the emitter current will be equal to collector current. I know you are all losing it when I'm telling all this, but just remember this VCE controls IC, and because of this, the collector current is not exactly equal to emitter current. Collector current decreases. That is all you need to know. Ideally, we'll keep VA is infinity, which means they are all parallel. They are not parallel because we all saw in this MOSFET circuits, right? See, everything will be parallel. Everything will be parallel. Everywhere I would have shown that they are all parallel. But here, when it comes to this BJT, in common emitter mode particularly, they are not parallel. This VCE controls IC, and because of this IC is being controlled by VCE, it also affects the emitter current, which makes these two junctions interactive. VCE is controlling the emitter current by controlling IC. So these two junctions are interacting. This is all you need to know about early effect. Now we all know what is a common base configuration. The base terminal is made a common between the output and input. Now, when I see, because everything VBE and IE, they both act as a diode. This is very similar to this is exactly equal, same as the diode circuit, right? So this is happening, and then I plot output characteristics. I plotted for BCB and IB by varying IE. I'll vary IE because IE is the input current in this. See, I've given the configuration input and output. For CB configuration, input current is IE. I've told you that BJT is the current control device. So when I vary IE, this value increases. This IC value increases. By varying IE, I vary IC, and that is why this is called as current control device. And if I increase it beyond some particular voltage, this is called BVCBO. What will happen is it will reach the breakdown condition, but it is a very high voltage. Normally in transistors it does not happen. For common base configuration, we'll use alpha as amplification factor. I've told you IC by IE, output by input. This is all. This is all. If you know, it is enough. Now for common emitter, the same thing follows. It acts as a diode device, and then here you will have this common emitter. I've told you how early effect plays an important role. Here I've shown you some dotted lines, right? This is very important because transistor, though I can bias it and all, the thing is you need to operate it only in this region, because it should not go into saturation, it should not reach maximum current, and then it should also not go behind this power. This is called power dissipation curve. This dotted line is there, right? This is called power dissipation curve. Based on different values, you will plot this curve, and you need to keep your operating point somewhere here. Okay, so this is all the derivation. Final derivation will be IC is equal to beta IB plus ICEO, okay, which is the common emitter output device. If the emitter is is open circuited, the current that will flow is reverse saturation current, like that in a diode, and that is all. This is the equation. You don't have to see all this derivation. Just see IC is equal to beta IB plus ICEO. Here I've shown how ICEO is almost equal to 250 times of ICBO, which is ICBO is a very small value when it comes here. So this will be mostly neglected. We will say IC is equal to alpha IE, and alpha, as I've told you, in a common base configuration, the current amplification factor is called alpha, and mostly it will be equal to 0.9, which is mostly equal to 1. So when ICBO is neglected, I can say IC is equal to 1 IE. Okay, but here this ICEO plays a very vital role. Here I've shown you. IE is equal IC is equal to beta IB, which is alpha by 1 minus alpha is beta IB plus ICEO, which is very well defined, which means in a common emitter, the reverse saturation current is very high. Just remember this: in common emitter, the reverse saturation current ICEO is very high, whereas in common base, the reverse saturation current is very less. Now I'll tell you why reverse saturation current. Now, before I start with that,
Raghavendran, sorry to interrupt you. Only few minutes is left.
Yes, ma'am. I'll wind up this.
Okay, ma. Okay.
First thing is, what material do we use most for semiconductor? Give me the name of few semiconductor materials that you know. Someone, you all know what we do, what we use for a semiconductor material. Like when I make a P-type or N-type, what one is? I'm sorry. Is there anyone? What?
Silicon, germanium.
Yes. Now, what do we use? Prefer mostly silicon or germanium?
Silicon. I think silicon, sir. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, exactly. Silicon. Why silicon? Where is silicon available on Earth?
Where is silicon available?
We cannot bring it from outer space, right? We have not. The technology has not gone that far.
Yes, sir.
Sand, exactly. Who's this Manikandana? Manikandana, can you unmute? River, from river we get silt. It's a fertile sand. I just want sand. Any sand, even if you bring it from the desert, they'll be able to extract silicon from it. Now the silicon, it is used because sand is abundantly available on Earth, right? That is why we prefer silicon. And another major reason is silicon can withstand very high temperatures. You know, people making popcorn using the sand as a medium, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, silicon can withstand very high temperatures. On a good day, it can withstand up to 1000 degrees Celsius also. Germanium, whereas on the other hand, it can withstand only up to 200 degrees Celsius. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and the main thing, third important point about silicon is silicon's reverse saturation current is very, very less compared to germanium.
Okay, sir.
And why reverse saturation current? Okay, oh, so what's so special about reverse saturation current? Okay, germanium has high reverse saturation current. Why am I not using it? Why should I go for silicon? Because there's a reason. Does anyone here know why reverse saturation current is important? Reverse saturation current. Why are we obsessed with reverse saturation current? What if reverse saturation current is high or low? Why do I bother about it? Okay, I'll come up with the answer. The reverse saturation current, based on the reverse saturation current only, the heating of the device is. If the reverse saturation current is high, the heating will be very high. If the reverse saturation current is low, the heating will be very low. Imagine I'm talking in a cell phone, and if it is made up of germanium, after few minutes, if it is going to get heated up, is there any use of the cell phone for me? If the time period is only 5 minutes, I can talk to someone only for 5 minutes. Is there any use of the device?
No, sir.
Saturation current has to be very less so that the heating of the device will be very less. That is why we prefer silicon. That is the major reason why silicon is preferred, because the heating will be very less. Now, again, we are going to go for this biasing of the device and all. Do you want me to? Yes, I'll end this.
Shall we continue the session of third?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. And students also, if you have any questions, you can ask the same question to the same person on third itself. Since we couldn't find time, we are in shortage of time. So I took my privilege to present the vote of thanks on behalf of management, principal, sir, HOD madam. I extend a hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Raghavendran, who showered his presence to the students in sharing the knowledge, that too a technical knowledge on analog devices. Definitely to kindle the knowledge of the students. And hello.
Ma'am?
As no program can become successful with a single person, I would like to thank all the staff members, particularly the second year staff counselors, for organizing this 1-week training program in a successful manner. Last but not the least, I should thank the student participants, especially Gunachandran, Manigandan, Lepakshi, Dhanapri, and all, for making this session an interactive one. I hope the same coordination from both the staff side and the student side in continuing this 1-week training in a successful manner. I once again thank you, Raghavendran, for your wonderful session.
Ma'am, actually, on third, when we meet, we will be discussing about small signal analysis. I know small signal analysis is a very difficult topic because we have many circuits. All these HFE parameters are there. It's a very difficult actually. So there's one simple method using which you can derive all the equations. Only one circuit is enough for you to derive all the equations. I'll just give one circuit which will have only two components. Using that, you'll be able to derive any question that is asked.
Okay, ma'am. So students kindly come out with the possible doubts on small signal analysis, then that can be getting clarified on third session. It is going to be handled by the same person. So get ready with your questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Feedback link will be provided only at the end of all the day session. That is
Okay,
only on 6th we'll be providing the link. Thank you, students. Okay. Thank you, Raghavendran.
Okay. Can I end this? Can I leave, ma'am?